All right. Okay. Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. All right. Hi. This is Ryan from Asia Pacific University. So welcome to our second day of APU and Industry Career Live Webinar sessions. Okay. So I'll be your MC for these sessions. Okay. How are you? I hope everyone who are watching this, no matter you're watching on a Facebook Live now or YouTube, I hope you're fine. Okay. You may comment at the below and say hello to us. All right, you can say hi, hello, let us know whether you're fine. All right. So yeah, the this APU Industry Career Webinar is going to be from 25th, which is yesterday, today, and also tomorrow until 27th of June. So basically, today is the second day of the webinar sessions, and we have actually covered quite a few areas of study yesterday, such as actuarial studies, AR, VR, and we had also another webinar session in the morning today, which is talking about game design and development, which was at 10:30 a.m. just now. So, for those who have missed those previous sessions, please feel free to watch the replay on our Facebook page and also our YouTube page. Of course, if you have not subscribed or follow our Facebook page or YouTube or even Instagram, please follow us and subscribe to us. All right. So yeah, we are going to have five more webinar session today, and we will be covering a few areas such as IR 4.0, engineering, accounting, cybersecurity, digital forensic, digital marketing, and new medias. All right. I would also like to invite all of our participants today to join our APU Open Days. Okay, so you can actually click on our website apu.edu.my, click on the banner about the APU Open Day, and our counselors are ready to guide you through your pathway for your further studies. All right. So, of course, for more information and updates, please visit our website at apu.edu.my or follow us on our Facebook page, Instagram page, or even YouTube channel. All right. Okay. So the topic of this current live stream is about future proving your career in IR 4.0. Okay. So if you're looking back at the history, the world have been through the first, the second, and the third of industrial revolution. Okay. Technology is getting more and more advanced throughout the years. And now, technology is basically everywhere in our life, especially with the Industrial Revolution 4.0 era is here now, and also with the COVID-19 pandemic lah. Most of our time are spending on the digital platform, right? Although the name is Industrial Revolution, but it doesn't mean that it's only related to the factories or to the big companies. It is actually changing our lifestyle and also changing a lot of jobs, a lot of careers. I believe a lot of you may have heard or even seen the news or report talking about, many jobs are going to be replaced by technology, right? So now it's time to learn how to embrace it. Okay, so today we are proud to have Mr. Gurpadip Singh, which is our COO, Chief Operating Officer of APU. Let us welcome Mr. Padip. Hi, Mr. Padip.
Hi, Ryan. Hi.
Morning. All right,
Morning.
let me
Morning.
pass the session to you.
Sure. Thank you. Hey, thanks, Ryan, and good morning, everyone. Once again, it's great to see you all online on a Saturday morning. Hopefully, keeping safe wherever you are, and hopefully, like I said, waiting for recovery of out of this pandemic that that we hopefully will see in the next few months. Yeah. In the meantime, I think that we've been holding a lot of webinars. APU has been organizing a lot of webinars over the last couple of weeks, last couple of weekends actually, and you would have noticed that in all the areas that our speakers have been talking about, if you have been following those webinars, you would have realized there is one common thread that runs across all of them. Yeah. And that is all of the areas, whether you're talking about finance, technology, engineering, of course, computing technology, design, and business, marketing. All of these areas have got one common thread running across all of them, and that common thread is technology. And the way in which digital technologies are rapidly changing the way people do work in all of those areas. So in this session, we are trying to bring all of that together, and I'm trying to give you an overview of the future of jobs, the future of technology, and in fact, the future that you as young people would actually will actually emerge into after you graduate, as you embark on your career. So it's a future that we need to try to understand how what it's going to look like. We're going to have to try to understand how we need to reorientate the way we work. We need to understand the way in which jobs are going to change, and more importantly, how do we exploit or take advantage of what technology will bring for us now and in the future. So that's a focus, because like I said, when you embark on your studies, you're not talking about working now, you're talking about working 3, 4, 5 years from now and beyond. And if we don't have a view of the future, then we won't be called future proof. That's why the title here is future proofing our careers. Yeah, it happens to be at the moment there's a lot of buzz and there's a lot of discussion about industry 4.0, but that's incidental. I think scientists will come up with all sorts of terms, catchphrases, and there'll be industry 5.0, there'll be industry 6.0 in the future and things like that. But don't get distracted by that. We need to understand some fundamental principles about how we need to cope in order to develop our careers for the future. Yeah. So let's start this journey, and I hope that we'll be able to learn a lot of things together as we go through the session this morning. Yeah. So since we're talking about the future, I think it's might be useful for us to try to understand what do we mean by future. What word best describes this thing we call future? If you were to look in a crystal ball and actually look into it, what is that one word that keeps coming up that will best describe the future that we will be getting into in the next 3, 4, 5 years? I'm sure a lot of thoughts are going through your mind. I'm sure some will say future is dark, future is bleak. I'm sure some will say exciting, some will say it's all about careers and things like that. But in my view, there's one word that is really going to describe the way we work. There's one word that's really going to describe the way we live and the way we play. It's already happening today, and it will happen even more intensely over the next few years. Yeah, and that word is disruption. So the future world is a world of heavy disruption. It's going to be a very heavily disrupted world. Now, immediately when you look at the word disruption, there is a negative connotation. And we feel, oh my God, all right, now your future is gone, it's going to be disrupted. And true, I think if you judge the future based on the events of the last couple of years in this pandemic, we would have actually felt like that. I don't blame you for feeling that there's going to be a very dark future ahead of us. But actually, disruption can also be looked at it from the positive perspective. Yeah, when we talk about disruption, we are talking about dramatically changing the way we live, work, and play in the future. And it's a very exciting disruption. Yeah, it's a very exciting form of disruption, a very exciting form of change. And so trying to understand how we can operate within that disrupted environment is really, really very useful, very important for us, and also very exciting as well. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that. All right, that'll be the focus of this session. How do we? What is this thing called disruption, and what is causing this disruption in the first place? What's the impact of this disruption on future work? And how do you get there? How do you survive? And how do you thrive in this disrupted world in the future? Yeah. So that's our focus. And just to get an understanding of disruption, I think most of us are familiar with the term innovation. We've been hearing that for many years, especially in this country. The government has been pushing very hard to transform our economy from what was originally a manufacturing-based economy into an innovation-based economy. And I think we've heard that for the last more than 30 years. the very establishment of the multimedia super corridor in the early 90s was designed to promote innovation. And to a large extent, I think Malaysia has achieved some success. I wouldn't say we have totally succeeded, but we are on the right path. We have seen innovations in many different ways in this country. We have adopted innovations from all over the world as well and brought them to the country. We have created innovations ourselves which have become world leading as well. But if we want to try to understand the difference between innovation and disruption, might be easy to just narrow it down to a very simple phrase. Innovation essentially is continuing to do the same things, but doing things a little bit better and better and better. So continuously improving the way we do the same things. I'll give you some examples later. Yeah. So innovation is finding new ways of doing the same things and achieving the same outcomes faster and better and more efficiently and maybe at lower cost and with greater impact. All right. That's innovation. So you can see in many ways how we've innovated over the years. Yeah. However, disruption takes things on a different plane altogether. Yeah. So we are just saying that as far as disruption is concerned, it's not about doing the same things. It's about saying that, hey, look, what we've been doing all this while might no longer be relevant in the future. So let's not do the same things. Let's not try to achieve the same outcomes. Let's try to dramatically change things and not be stuck in old mindsets. Let's make things that make the old things obsolete. So maybe what we've been doing all this while, maybe the outcomes that we've been trying to achieve, maybe the work that we've been trying to do is wrong. So let's think of new ways of doing things. Let's think of dramatically different approaches so that it will take development, or it will take our lives exponentially much better. All right, and it will improve things much quicker. All right, and it will be able to exploit technologies that are appearing. Yeah. So innovation gives the idea that we are going on a normal plane, all right, like that, whereas disruption is this way, yeah, like a rocket. So let me give you some examples, and I think these are examples that we'll all be familiar with. If you look at this picture, maybe your parents, those of you my age, I guess, we would recognize this. If we wanted to call a taxi maybe 20 years ago or 15 years ago, this is an innovation, because previously, if you wanted to call a taxi, you actually got to walk out into a road, probably in the rain or in the hot sun, and you got to hail down a cab. Yeah, that's the only way to find a taxi. But then eventually, people found innovative ways of getting taxis, so they created radio cabs. And so you call a number, and if you are lucky, a taxi will come and pick you up from your house. Yeah, 24-hour service and things like that. So this was the way we used to call taxis in the 90s and maybe up to about 10-15 years ago. Yeah, innovating. Yeah, so innovating methods of achieving basically the same result. Yeah, so because innovations can only go so far, then people start thinking, hey, look, is this the best way of doing things? In fact, the thinking would be then, all right, so this is an innovative way of getting taxis, but hang on, do we really need taxis? Right? Is there an option? Is there an alternative to taxis? And that's where ideas like e-hailing came about. Grab and Uber and all the other e-hailing services that have appeared over the last few years that you use very, very commonly now today. All right. So the idea is, hey, look, maybe all this while we've been following the wrong model. All right. Instead of relying on taxis, anybody with a car can now run a taxi service. Right? Anybody with a car can take passengers. So that's where e-hailing came about, dramatically disrupting the entire transportation industry. So this is a disruption. Innovation is making the way, improving the way in which you get taxis. Right? Disruption is removing our dependency on taxis and democratizing it so that anybody can become a taxi driver. Anybody can provide a taxi service, all right, with their own vehicles. That's disruption. Yeah. Other forms of disruption, even when you wanted to book a hotel up to 10-15 years ago, you go to the hotel website and you actually look for a deal that might suit your needs, and then you book a room from that hotel's website. But eventually, there were ways in which people found ways to innovate. Services like Expedia, Trivago, and Agoda, and so on and so forth, brought hotel websites together. They work with the hotels to get deals, and then if you can go to a single site, and this site will then go and find the best deal from you from the hotel, which can meet your needs. All right, that's a form of innovation. right? Leading towards disruption. There's a form of innovation. But then somebody sat down and say, hey, look, hang on, why do we need hotels? Anybody with an apartment, with a decent apartment, which is and which is available, can rent it out as though it was a hotel room at a much lower cost and meeting the needs of your clients. And that's where Airbnb came about. Yeah. So Airbnb is not hotels. It is actually people like you and me who might have a room available, who might have an apartment available, and we want to rent it out. And that's where, like I said, Airbnb and other services like this came about. Yeah. So that's disruption, right? It's disrupted the hotel industry. And then we've seen cinemas. Obviously, I think this is something you're quite familiar with. Maybe up to 25 years ago, or maybe up to 30 years ago, the only way to watch a movie is to go into a cinema, all right, and watch a movie. Then DVDs and well, earlier it was videotapes, and then DVDs and VCDs and so on and so forth came about. So you could actually go and buy these things or borrow these things and go home and watch them. Innovations. But then people sat down and say, hey, hang on, do we really need to depend on physical methods of obtaining movies? Why don't we create a streaming service? And that's where you've got services like Netflix and HBO and Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Apple TV, and so on and so forth, now providing you in the comfort of your own home the same type of movies, recent movies, latest movies that you would get only in the cinemas in those days, and very, very blurry DVDs and CDs being streamed down in your own home on demand. You watch it anytime you want to, and how many times you want to, and with whomever you want to watch it. And that's become our life today. Yeah. So that's disruption, because that's disrupted the cinema industry. Yeah. And you can think of many more. I'm sure if you sit down, you can think of many ways in which the several industries have been disrupted. So if you're a young person below 20, 15 to 18, or maybe even slightly older than that, this has been your life. Yeah. This is your life today. And in fact, this has been your life most definitely during this pandemic. You sit at home and you can access everything that you need. You needed entertainment, you go to Netflix, you go to Amazon. You needed to communicate, you have WhatsApp and all of the other tools, Snapchat, Instagram. You needed information, you go to Google, you go to YouTube, you go to Pinterest. You need to get news, you go to Instagram. You need to buy things, you go to eBay, Amazon, Lazada, Shopee, and all these other online shops. And if you needed to get yourself entertained with songs, you go to Spotify, and you're surrounded with all of the devices that you need in order for you to operate. And honestly, you can get all this. You can live without leaving your home. And this is what enabled us to survive during this pandemic. I would be very daring enough to say that if this pandemic had happened 20, 25 years ago, we wouldn't have survived, because all these tools were not available. I think we would have gone crazy. Yeah. So these what we call disruptions in our life, right, enabled us to survive the pandemic, enabled us to continue to operate during the pandemic, although not ideally, but at least enabled us to carry on with our lives. Yeah. And this is an example of disruptions. All of these are disruptions. Yeah. They have taken technology to a point at which it has actually disrupted the way we do things, right? The way we live and the way we play. Yeah. And you can see disruptions in many other fields. In finance, in particular, the financial services industry is being disrupted in a major way. Yeah. So in the past, if you wanted to go and borrow money, you had to go to a bank. No more. You have online and web-based and app-based applications where you are able to carry out all your financial transactions, borrowing money, investing, lending, debt financing, whole payments and wholesale markets, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and so on and so forth. Personal advisory, where there are robo-advisors advising you on where to invest, what to invest in, where you can get the best returns, and to carry out bank transactions without actually going to a bank. Yeah, so this is a major area which is being disrupted, and it doesn't stop there. There are so many disruptions. The fintech, the term that has come up is fintech, yeah, financial technologies. And I think if you've been following, do go to our channels, our YouTube channels, and you'll find a few sessions that our academic staff have conducted in the fintech area that talks about how technology is dramatically disrupting the financial services sector, and you will see how it works and how you can get involved in that as well. Yeah, this is just a snapshot of some of the popular portals and some of the popular apps that have come up through the fintech ecosystem that exists today, and there will be many, many more coming along as we go forward. Now, this is a classic case of disruption. If you look at the top, and this is maybe about 10, 11 years ago, if you wanted to go and take a video from the sky, an aerial video shot, you basically have to rent a helicopter, then hire somebody who's daring enough to sit at the edge of the helicopter, hold a heavy camera on his shoulder, and take a video shot from the sky. Yeah, major exercise, major investment, dangerous, and might have taken you the whole day to get the perfect shot. Yeah, very expensive as well. Yeah, but today, what do? You just get this drone, not a heavily expensive device. Yeah, with reasonable resolution camera, and you just sit in the comfort of your chair, maybe just standing outside, and guide the drone where to go, right, wherever you need it to make the perfect shot for you, and you can reshoot and reshoot and reshoot without incurring the sort of expense that you had to incur. So, and this is just in the space of 10 years, this sort of disruption has happened. Yeah, so this is a classic. All right, and I was very, very taken in by this picture because it really describes the way in which technology is disrupting our world. Yeah, so what we have seen so far is that most, if not all, disruption is driven and enabled by technology. Yeah, inevitably, it is technology that is driving all this disruption. So that's why when we talk about disruption, we always put it together with the term digital. And so people talk about digital disruption. Yeah, everything is digital. So digital disruption cannot happen today without digital. Of course, you need the thinking that goes behind it, the people who are able to think about how to disrupt a particular service or a particular area of work, all right? But it's always invariably involves digital disruption, yeah, involves technology. Yeah, and you can see that how it's affecting, how it's influencing the way companies have developed over the years. 100 years ago, if you see on the left, the biggest companies in the world were the steel companies and the oil and gas companies in real industries, yeah, large-scale industries, manufacturing companies, yeah. Maybe about 50 years ago, that was when computers had started to become popular. Then people like IBM became the market leaders or the industry leaders in terms of value. AT&T for telecommunications, Eastman Kodak cameras and film, General Motors for vehicles, and so on and so forth. But today, who are the biggest companies in the world? It's the likes of Apple, the likes of Alphabet, which own Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, and so on and so forth. In fact, Amazon during the pandemic has zoomed up and taken over everybody else. Yeah, and all these companies are heavily driving disruption. So you will see more and more in the future companies that are involved in this disruption, all right, growing up in terms of value, commercial value, in terms of the value of the organizations as we go forward. Now, then we've got to think about another concept. Yeah, alongside all this, there's something called Industry 4.0, and I think you've heard a lot about that. Yeah, and it's still being spoken about. And we try to understand what it's all about and try to see how this relates to the disruptions that we've been talking about. Yeah, actually, Industry 4.0 was coined by a German scientist, and this is the eminent scientist, Dr. Klaus Schwab, who chairs the World Economic Forum. And he came up with this idea somewhere around 2014, about 7 years ago, and he said that, look, we are now entering the fourth industrial revolution. Right, the fourth industrial revolution, which means that there was a first, second, and third, according to his theory. We'll look at those phases later. But what he's saying is that today's industrial revolution, the fourth one, will affect the very essence of our human experience. And we're already seeing that happening. We're already seeing the way technology is affecting the way we live, the way we work, and the way we play. Yeah. Of course, the full term is the fourth industrial revolution. Bit of a mouthful, so I think a lot of us tend to use the term Industry 4.0 just to simplify it and because it sounds better. Yeah, but the whole concept of the fourth industrial revolution is to position where we are now against what has happened in the past. So the first industrial revolution was in the 17th and 18th century when we started, when the steam engines were invented and things started becoming automated. Yeah, so mechanization, steam power, and so on and so forth. And then Industry 2.0 was when mass production started being used in a big way. That's probably towards the turn of the 19th, 20th century. Yeah, factories producing products on a mass production basis, yeah, like vehicles and things like that. All right, but The third industrial revolution was actually the computer revolution, and that was immediately after World War II, thereabouts, and that's when computers started becoming more and more and more widespread in terms of usage in commerce, in industry, and so on and so forth, because previously they were used purely for military and scientific purposes only. Yeah, so the third industrial revolution was basically the computer revolution, right? But now, today, where we are entering the fourth industrial revolution. All right, and here the term that is commonly used is cyber physical systems. What does that mean? All right. Now, don't worry too much about this diagram. It might be a bit complicated, but basically it's telling you that there are two worlds. You have the cyber world, which is where all our web applications, all our processors, all our services, all our data, the cloud that operates, all the systems that operate there, the networks, that is one world that is called a cyber world. And then you have the physical world, the world that we operate in, the devices that we use, the vehicles that we drive, the things that we wear, all right, and the devices that we use to get entertainment and so on and so forth. That's a physical space. That's where we operate. Now, in the past, these two worlds were quite separate, right? They were quite disparate worlds. So the idea of the Industrial Revolution 4.0, or IR 4.0 for that matter, is that these two worlds are converging. So you now have all of these services, the cyberspace converging with the physical space. So everything is very close to us now, bringing it closer to the human beings. All right, it's no longer some mystical idea of there's this big computer sitting somewhere which is providing us with data. We have no access to it. We have no interaction with it. But everything is now interacting together with us. So devices communicating with each other, devices exchanging data, systems making decisions for us, and helping us in every part of our life, work, and play. Yeah. So it's basically a convergence between the cyberspace and the physical space. That's the basic idea of IR 4.0. And these are some of the technologies that are driving this, disruptive technologies. Yeah. Autonomous robots, simulation, Internet of Things, IoT, as you can see here, right, which is quite common. And then you have also cloud computing, augmented reality, big data. So you hear about these technologies. Now, the reason why Industry 4.0 has really come to the fore over the last 4 or 5 years is because these technologies have now reached a stage of maturity. They were very experimental, probably about 10, 20, 30 years ago. We were experimenting with them. We were trying to use them here and there, probably less effectively because of the type of technology or hardware that was available. But over the last 4 or 5 years, these have really matured, right? And they've become really serious technologies that will help us to drive the future. Yeah. And now we are talking about the fifth industrial revolution. If it's not enough to have the fourth, scientists are saying that we are now going to enter the fifth industrial revolution, which is going to be driven entirely by AI, artificial intelligence built in everything that we work with. Yeah, very exciting. And that's the world of the future. That's the world that you will be looking at entering when you start working. Yeah. Internet of Things, I mentioned earlier. The IoT basically refers to devices connected onto this network, this worldwide network, devices communicating with each other, devices exchanging data, and there's been an explosion. So if you compare with 30 years ago, where we maybe had about 1 million devices connected to the network, basically PCs, today we have at least 50 billion and growing. Yeah, more than 50 billion devices connected. And I think in your own home, you go around and count, you may have at least 5 or 6 or 7 or even more than that devices that are connected to the internet in some way, or connected to some network in some way, and exchanging data with other devices. All right, your phones, your watches, your smartwatches, your laptops, all these are interconnected in some way or the other. All right, that's part of the IoT ecosystem. And then data, explosion of data. So I think we are quite used to talking on megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes, but going forward, that's not enough, right? We've got to talk about petabytes, exabytes, zettabytes, going up to job bytes, which is 10 to the power of 30 zeros. All right, that's our digital universe tomorrow. It's all about huge amounts of data being generated, because you've got all these devices connected on the network, which will be continuously generating data. And something has to happen to this data. What happens to them? The data has to be processed somewhere. Yeah, and that's where big data comes in. And then AI, right? And this makes up all the most of the major areas of AI today. Of course, this area is rapidly developing. devices and systems are becoming more and more intelligent. Robots are becoming more and more intelligent, and we will see major developments in AI in all aspects of work as we go along in the future. Yeah. So robotics, we've seen the drones earlier, we've seen service robots. We do see them now being used here and there. Caregiver robots, home assistants, and even that very humble robot that you have vacuuming your floor, you just let loose. That's a robot. Yeah, that's actually a robot, and it's actually going around cleaning your floor while you're just sitting back and watching a TV. All right, and it's actually a robot. It's able to go to the right places. This cleaning robot here, yeah, you have it in your own home today. Yeah, and they're getting more and more intelligent. Yeah, so this is a major area of development. Now, alongside that, because there's so much data being exchanged and because there's so many devices that need to communicate with each other, networks also have to improve. So we are all used to using 4G networks, but as you know, the world is rapidly changing, the world of networks, and today we are talking about going to 5G networks, and now they're already talking about 6G. Right, 6G is really high multi-gigabit speed networks, much more capacity. So you could effectively download a full 2-hour movie, all right, in just a few minutes. Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, and then a lot of capacity, low latency. That means no delay. Right, and that's very important for some of the applications. For example, we talk about autonomous vehicles that drive on their own. They need to be continuously in contact. Right, you need to be able to exchange data with them continuously. All right, and you can't afford delays, because a split-second delay can make the difference between life and death. Yeah, so this is a major development in networks. This country, in Malaysia, we are now rolling out 5G networks. I think it's taken some time, but we are going to get there. All right, there's some countries that have already implemented them, but we will see this growing and growing and growing in the future. Yeah, and when you have so much data and so many devices on the networks, then we have to think about security. And this is where a whole industry has now evolved or developed in cybersecurity. So a lot of people are doing a lot of work in making sure that what we're using and what we're doing on the internet, what we're doing with our devices is secure. Yeah, keeping ourselves safe. Yeah, so cybersecurity has become a major area. Why? Because security breaches today cost losses of more than 600 billion US dollars, and it's growing, right, every year. Right, these are statistics that have been generated. Yeah, and a lot of these are caused by insiders. A lot of these are caused by and a lot of security professionals are talking about major attacks continuously happening. Yeah, and we've read in the last few weeks there were attacks in the pipelines in the US, for example, where Russia has been blamed of attacking the pipelines. And these are not people who go with guns and bombs and try to blow up these pipelines. These are people sitting thousands of miles away, hacking into the computers that drive these pipelines and trying to disrupt the supply of oil in the US, for example. Yeah, so that's very dangerous, because in the past, when you can actually see your enemy, you can actually see your enemy coming and attacking you, and you can do something about it. But today, your enemy is sitting thousands of miles away. All right, hacking you without you even knowing it, hacking your systems. Yeah, so you need to put in place security measures for that, and that's where the whole cybersecurity ecosystem has evolved, and is going to continue to evolve as a very important area. Yeah, but in the longer future, there are many new technologies that people are talking about. You can see some of these. Some of this, the ones in purple, for example, are already here. We're already talking about them. Yeah. You notice one thing here, 4D printing, and this really intrigued me quite a bit, because we are used to 3D printers today. Of course, 2D printing is what we all have, printing paper, but 3D printers, we have seen them being used more and more commonly today, and you can buy one very cheaply in your house as well. But what is 4D printing? What is that fourth dimension that you're printing? Yeah, and it's fascinating, because this is what is produced by a 4D printer. To give an example, the 4D printer can produce not only an object, but can produce an object that has got movement built into it. So imagine the immense possibilities here. You can actually have an object that has got movement built into into itself. Yeah, where it doesn't require an external source of energy. Right. So if you can imagine billions of these things being printed by a 4D printer, put together, you can actually create a self-sustaining piece of machinery. Yeah, the possibilities are limitless. Now this is evolving. Yeah, but You never know, right? In the next few years, you'll see these things coming up more and more commonly. Yeah. So just to give you a flavor, yeah. And of course, all of this has got to do with jobs as well. Yeah. So the big question is what's going to happen to jobs in the future, and I'm sure that's a major concern in your mind. Yeah. So let's start talking about jobs. And a lot of studies have been carried out. This is a study by Business Insider, and they've already identified certain jobs which they feel have got a very high degree of chance of disappearing in the future. Yeah, so engravers, crop farm worker, travel agent, robotics engineers, customs brokers, air traffic controllers, because they're finding these to be more and more possible in the near future of intelligent systems taking over. Yeah. This is one survey. Another survey is, and this is from the World Economic Forum. Now, the World Economic Forum is a very eminent organization. It is a very important organization. If you have the time, go to the World Economic Forum website. They have a portal, and they've got a lot of information there that you can access. This is from their latest report that they published at the end of 2020. This is an annual report that they do. They conduct an annual survey among employers and companies all over the world, thousands and thousands of employees. And in their latest survey, they asked employers, okay, what are you going to do beyond this pandemic? What is your priority? How are you going to focus on recovering your organization, yeah, making yourself come out stronger from this pandemic? And the top two things that companies said that they will do, unsurprisingly, number one, you see, accelerate the digitalization of work processes. That means companies are realizing, hey, look, if you want to survive, you want to come out stronger after this pandemic, we've got to automate. We've got to really digitalize, all right, because that's the way forward. We cannot come out of this pandemic doing the same things that we were doing before, all right, because the world is going to be very different, yeah, because of these disruptive technologies, yeah. Also, they want to provide more opportunities to work remotely. So there are people, they're encouraging their staff now to sit at home and do the work from their homes, all right? So supporting that and creating the technologies and the tools to enable that is also becoming a priority. And so many other areas, yeah? Accelerate the automation of tasks, accelerate digitalization, and so on and so forth. So in fact, this pandemic, although we look at it and it's a terrible thing, it's causing tremendous loss of life and tremendous economic hardship and destruction all over the place in people's lives. At some point, we've got to realize that this pandemic has actually helped us to accelerate the use of technology. All right. So it has enabled us to actually realize how important technology is for us to ensure that work continues, to ensure that life continues. Yeah. And so I would say that the pandemic, all right, although a very, very, very terrible phenomena, has accelerated the pace of disruption. All right. And has the disruption was already happening, but because the pandemic happened, it's been accelerated. Yeah, and it's going to accelerate the change in which of jobs of the future. So what are the technologies that companies said that they will adopt? Same survey, yeah. Cloud computing, big data analytics, IoT, the stuff that I've been talking to you about earlier, yeah. And now companies are saying that, yeah. And then jobs. So the companies were asked, okay, which jobs do you think are going to be popular in the future, and which jobs are going to disappear? So on the left-hand side are jobs that they see as increasing demand: data analysts, scientists, AI and machine learning specialists, big data specialists, digital marketing. So not traditional marketeers anymore, but digital marketeers and strategy specialists, process automation specialists, and so on and so forth. Now, don't get misled. Yeah, although a lot of these titles have got digital and data built into them, but they're not necessarily computer science professionals, right? They are actually people who have studied business, finance, and the traditional areas, but they have got a very strong understanding of how technology can support them. So you can see even fintech engineers at the bottom there, right? Fintech engineers. So these are basically people who have learned accounting and finance, but they have a very keen understanding of how digital technology is disrupting the fintech ecosystem or the financial ecosystem, right? And they are able to take disruption and create new models or new ways of doing things. Yeah. So the titles don't get misled. Yeah, titles are just titles, right? It's just the point we're trying to make here is that everything is going to be digital. So the word digital might even disappear in the future because everything is digital anyway. Yeah. So there's no need to actually put the word digital anymore because it's digital. And that's what the future is going to be like. And you can see jobs that may be disappearing in the future. Yeah. and which we feel in the next 5 or 6 years, jobs will be declining. Yeah. So basically, we can see that traditional, predictable, routine jobs will disappear, and new jobs that require greater creativity, innovation, human interaction, and deep analytical skills are going to come into the picture, because it's all about thinking. It's, the jobs, the very routine work can be done by computers, can be done by intelligent systems, and what human beings need to focus on now is how to take things further, how to create creative solutions, how to interact with other human beings, and how to do analysis, and continuously try to evolve, and continue to try to improve things, right? That's the value of human work. Yeah. Not so much the mundane routine tasks. Yeah. Good news, because some of us might be concerned, oh my God, will I have a job in the future? And the answer is yes, because well, there may be 85 million jobs that may disappear over the next 5 or 6 years. And the World Economic Forum also says that there will be 97 million new jobs. So there are more new jobs appearing than old jobs disappearing. So it's good news, great news. Yeah. And this is prediction is by 2025. Yeah. However, I mean, that's nice. I mean, you will say, oh, that's World Economic Forum and, big countries, and, it's global. But we in Malaysia, really, all this doesn't affect Malaysia. Always Malaysia might be behind, or Malaysia might not be following the global trends. So let's talk about Malaysia. All right. So what's happening here in Malaysia? And you'll see similar things happening. Yeah. So in fact, this is the latest survey from MDEC. This is just very recently released, I think a couple of weeks ago. MDEC, if you are not familiar, is the Malaysian Digital Economy Corporation. They manage the development of the digital economy in this country. Right? They were previously called the MSC Malaysia, Multimedia Sopi Corridor Malaysia, and then they changed their name to Multimedia Development Corporation, and then now it's the Malaysian Digital Economy Corporation. Yeah. So they've already said that, and this is their survey that they've carried out with employers in Malaysia, 85% of companies in Malaysia are going to face digital talent issues. That means 85% of the companies have said, look, we need digital talent, we cannot find them. All right. And 43% of them, about half of them, are saying they're going to hire foreign talents. All right. Which is a shame, because we have talent in this country. Yeah, it's you guys, right? People who are entering this the world of study. Yeah. And in terms of digital jobs, tremendous growth, and you've seen digital jobs growing from 19,000 plus new vacancies to now 52,000 plus new vacancies appearing. Yeah. And this is during the pandemic, right? So during the pandemic itself, you've seen digital jobs growing tremendously, almost threefold, right? So there are many opportunities that have been created out of this pandemic in digital technology, and it will continue to grow along similar roads, similar trajectories, right? And which are the industries that are hiring digital talents? Of course, at the top there, you can see traditional financial services, that means banks, insurance companies, and so on and so forth, IT services, of course, computer software services, internet companies. They've got a lot of demand for digital talents, but then there are others as well. Because of this disruption that we are talking about, market research companies, music companies, because of streaming and digital methods of creating media, cosmetics companies, tobacco companies, renewables, information services, online media, biotechnology, and the list goes on. So every company, almost every organization in this country is saying that they need digital talents. That's why I said digital is already a given. It's already here, right? We don't even have to talk about digital talent, because it is already part of the ecosystem. Yeah. So MDEC is saying that, look, there's a major shortage, guys, right? We need talent in this country, right? And the talent has to come from the young people getting to education. So what are the fastest growing job titles in Malaysia? Digital marketing executive, software test engineer, data scientist, and so on and so forth. Look at the last one, YouTuber. All right, very interesting. So there are people who are actually making a career out of becoming influencers on YouTube. Very innovative, very creative. Yeah. And also Southeast Asia, we're talking about the region. Similar titles, all right, but you can see maybe different trends in terms of priorities. Yeah. Now this is all data that is based on actual surveys in industry, so it's real. It is real. Yeah. And also, I think Malaysia is also talking about coming out of this pandemic. The theme is resetting Malaysia. This just came out maybe a couple of weeks ago, and there are 4 things that Malaysia needs to do. 4 agendas there: much needed economic resetting, new economic landscape, and so on and so forth. But look at the yellow boxes. the one on the left-hand side, they're embracing the digital economy, promoting technology adoption and investment and advancement, right? Preparing the future workforce. So all of this have become government priorities, right? This is from the Economic Action Council, of Malaysia, all right, as guiding economic development for the future of Malaysia, all right. So technology forms a very important aspect of our country's own strategies for the future, all right. So some numbers that matter to us. Contribution of the digital economy to Malaysia's economy is about 17%. Now, this is a slightly dated. It's probably higher now, right? In terms of this one, in terms of percentage, is about 12.4%. So digital contributes 12.4%. Annually, the growth rate is about 12.4%. It's growing every year. Yeah. Annual growth rate of tech professional salaries. The salaries are also growing at 30% annually. Average salary of tech professionals today is about 9,000. Of course, you take from entry level right up to highly experienced professionals. And also the annual growth in demand for tech professionals is 20%. I showed you the graph earlier. Yeah. So every year there's an increase about 20% in demand for tech professionals. On the other hand, the annual growth in supply, all right, there's demand, we need people, but what we are getting in terms of supply is only 3.7%. So there's a major shortfall. There's more demand than supply, right? And in any economic environment, if demand exceeds supply, right, that means it's a place to go into. It's a business that you want to get into, all right? It's a field of study that you want to get into and take advantage of that demand versus supply issue. And this demand growth is going to continue, right, as we continue to evolve in this disrupted world, yeah? So major issue. Just a snapshot of some of the salaries in some of the positions that have been produced. This is from Digital News Asia from 2020. Yeah. All right. So let's get down to reality then. Who's going to do all these things? Who's going to do all this work in driving the digital economy forward? And the answer is you. All right. And how do you do it? You get into jobs like this. So every organization has got jobs at various levels. Every organization requires digital technology jobs. We've already said that earlier. So these are the kind of titles that exist in organizations, right? Analysts, programmers, information technology managers, hardware and software managers, telecommunications managers, and so on and so forth. From lower level right up to senior level, you've got these positions in typical organizations across all industries, yeah? And of course, job titles are continuously evolving, all right? So this industry is a very, very dynamic industry. It's a very creative and innovative industry, and job titles keep appearing and disappearing all the time. Yeah, very exciting area that is very, very fast moving. Yeah, and some you can see in the types of job titles that are very popular today, but maybe 5 years later there will be a totally different list. Right, and that's the reality of this industry. Yeah. And in fact, some ideas are coming about in 2029. This is from Cognizant. This is a study conducted in 2019. And they asked employers, what are the future, in 10 years, what sort of job titles might exist? And you can see some very interesting ones: haptic interface programmer, flying car developer, cyber calamity forecaster, cyber attack agent, juvenile cybercrime rehabilitation counselor, head of business behavior, vertical farm consultant, chief purpose planner. So these are titles that may start to appear over the next few years. Yeah, and it's all because of this disruption. It's all because of the way in which technology is disrupting the way we work, live, and play. Yeah. So how do you get there as a young person aspiring to get into these types of careers? The first thing is, of course, you got to get an education. All right, education pathways, of course, in this country, very straightforward. You finish your SPM or O levels, go into pre-university, go into a degree, and then go into employment or in postgraduate studies. Similarly, you can go into a diploma and get into employment or get into degrees. I think you know the drill here. Yeah, and which courses? And the answer is you can join any of these courses. Yeah, course titles are course titles. Right, the course titles are there to give you a peek into areas that you might be interested in. Yeah, so don't be guided by hype. Don't be guided by somebody telling you, hey, you must do this, or you must do that. Look at the course carefully, look at the subjects, and if the subjects excite you, then you say, hey, look, I want to do this. All right, go into it based on your interest. Right, you might be very interested in accounting and finance. Go into it, but look at the subjects and ask them whether these subjects will prepare you for a disruptive future. whether you've got sufficient understanding of technology in there, whether you've got sufficient understanding of, for example, how fintech is going to drive the accounting and finance structure in the future. Go into business and marketing, but look at and see whether there are opportunities for you to get into digital marketing, into digital businesses, into transformations in organization, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So look at the modules, look at the subjects, and see what interests you. Right. So don't, like I said, don't go by the herd mentality. Yeah. All right. Look at what interests you and go into a program that interests you. Right. But whatever you do, you got to think about some elements here. All right. Some things that are very important. It's not enough just to have something called a degree. All right. A degree is a qualification that you need to have, or a diploma, but it's not good enough. All right. And why is it not good enough? This is why. All right. So when we talk to employers, when we talk to industry, and this is just an article that I picked out from the staff maybe a few years ago, still relevant today, and employers say the same things all over. Right. They say, okay, look, when we interview graduates, all right, we can't hire them because some of them don't have the English language competency. They talk about English language competency. They don't talk about any other language. And that is because English is the global communication medium, right? It's the way in which you can communicate globally. And your future of work is going to be a global future. It's going to be a borderless future. So the lack of proficiency in English limits your ability to communicate beyond the borders of Malaysia. Employers are saying this, all right? New graduates lack critical thinking skills, need to be more thinkers, all right? You need to be able to communicate, you need to engage in conversation, you need to show confidence, and most importantly, display a global mindset, right? Not be narrow, not be focused in your environment, all right? You need to be more broad-minded. These are employers saying this. So they are saying that people are coming with degrees, but not having all of these attributes. So your university experience or your study experience should develop you in these areas, should enable you to become strong communicators, should enable you to become people who've got a global mindset, right? That's equally as important as the subjects that you study, right? And this is a survey done by JobStreet a couple of years ago, and same things, right? So when they ask employers what are the problems with graduates today, they talk about attitude, they talk about character, right? They talk about English, again English, yeah, and then they talk about communication skills, right? So communication is not just about language; it's about how you communicate. It's about body language. It's about facial expressions. It's about inspiring confidence in people. Yeah, and that's very important when you're talking about getting into a digital disrupted world. Yeah, so it's no longer a case of you being able to sit down in one corner and work on your own. It doesn't happen anymore. All right, you've got to engage with people continuously. Employers are saying that. Yeah, and so if you want to take all the attributes that will make you really employable, this is what we feel. All right, you need to have, right? You need to be a self-learner. You need to be a leader, creative, ethical, professional, analytical, people-oriented, adaptable. The yellow box, very important, and information-oriented. All right, hungry for information continuously. Yeah. So the most important one here at this moment is adaptable. All right. So why is adaptability so important? Just look at this statistics, and this is a survey done by PwC. I think about 3-4 years ago, and they've already said that 47% of the jobs that we have today will disappear in the next 20 years. Right, 96% of accountancy jobs will disappear due to automation. 39% jobs in the legal sector will be automated. Now, don't let that scare you. All right. What they're trying to say basically is that the way accountants work today is dramatically going to change 3, 4, 5 years from now. All right. There's still going to be a tremendous demand for accountants and for finance professionals, but not traditional accountants and finance professionals. You need accounting and finance professionals who strongly understand how technology and digital technologies can drive the way those services are provided and how they can bring added value to organizations. Yeah, very important. Legal sector, lawyers, again, same thing, tremendous demand for lawyers, but not traditional type of lawyers, not because the technology is going to help you to do a lot of things that you used to do manually in the past. So you need people who really understand the law and understand how digital technology can support them in their work. All right. So don't get me wrong. It's not to say that there will be no jobs for accountants and lawyers. The jobs will continue to increase, but there will be different types of jobs, different types of work that people will carry out in these sectors. Yeah, using technology. All right. So what would really help you to future-proof yourself? Think about it as you're embarking on your studies. Of course, the course is important. Look at the course that interests you, look at the subjects that interest you. But Also equally important is the environment that you study in, and the people that you study with, and the people that you study from, right? All these have an influencing factor on your development, right? A lot of people are saying, look, I can stay at home, enroll to short courses, and develop myself, develop my skills. Not good enough. All right, that will might develop your knowledge, might develop your skills as a person, but you won't be able to enhance your interaction with people, which is very important. All right, you won't be immersed in part of within part of an ecosystem, and you need to be there. All right, and your study experience should be a very, very transformative experience for you. You should be a different person from the time you started your studies till the time you end. There must be a major difference, and that difference is what employers need to see. Right, and they'll say, I want this person to work for me. All right, so this will help you future proof yourself, yeah, alongside a lot of the other things that you talked about before. So at this stage, are you prepared for disruption? You have to be, because it's coming, and it's going on now, and it's going to be even more intense in the future. So you need to be prepared for it. You need to embrace it, and you need to ride the wave of disruption. So with that, thank you very much. I hope that we've been able to share some of our insights with you. I'm very happy to receive questions if there are any. All right, but I wish you all the best in your journey as you enter highly disrupted work for the future, and hopefully you have a great future for yourself. Yeah, so all the best to you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Padip.
Sure.
All right. So if any of you have any question, do post in the comment now, so Mr. Padip can answer to you. All right. Meanwhile, Mr. Padip, can I ask you
Yep.
maybe one or two questions?
Sure.
Okay. So based on what you see just now, of course, nowadays all the jobs that is how to say getting you need to have some knowledge about this technology, or I
Yeah,
would say knowledge or skills that's related to IR 4.0s, right? So can we say that
that's right.
actually
That's right.
for those students who study the course with the IR 4.0 knowledge or skill will be easier to get a job, or even at a higher salary?
That seems to be the trend where it's going. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the
Mm,
future, regardless of area of study, like I said, whether it's
mm,
finance, accounting, law, business, whatever, right?
mm,
Uh, a lot more and more focus will be on their ability to use these technologies to enhance
mm.
their work in those areas. Yes. So definitely that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, like Mr. Padip mentioned just now,
Mm,
doesn't matter you study in IT or engineering or business
that's right.
studies, accounting, as long as you have the knowledge, basically about
Correct.
technology, how to embrace it, and you should be
Correct.
able to still get a job. It's not saying that the
Correct.
job will not be there, right? Yeah. So,
Correct. So I
do you
mean
have
the
any?
bit
Yeah.
the
Yes.
point is
Mm,
if you're taking whatever course of study, I mean even
mm,
if it's accountancy, accounting and
mm,
finance, don't be a run of the mill accountant. If it's an
mm,
engineer, don't be a run of the mill engineer. All right, you've got to be something special. You've got to have that little bit extra. All right, and that extra is what I've shared with you earlier. Yeah. So
okay.
technology and also all the other attributes. Yeah, that we spoke about.
Yep. So I believe those who are watching with us now, some are students and maybe with their parents also,
Yeah.
and they are actually working in the industry for quite a few years, and some they don't really have the skills or knowledge
Yeah.
about 4.0 related. Any advice for them?
Oh, sure. I mean, if you're already working, if you already got a qualification, there are many opportunities today for you to upskill yourself. So go on to the web. There's a lot of online MOOCs. MOOCs are basically the massive open online courseware, and there's a lot of courses that are available that you can actually enroll into. Yeah, and that is if you already got a qualification and you want to upskill and train and learn something new. Look, learning is lifelong, right? Gone are the days when you can do a degree and you can stop learning and you just work. Yeah, that cannot exist anymore. All right, so go and search for courses that might interest you, attend them online, and if you're interested, even enroll for a course with a training provider. Then there's a lot of training providers in this country as well who provide training. But whatever it is, keep learning. That's the most important thing. Keep learning, keep being hungry for information and for knowledge and for changing the way you think, right? And that's where agility is important. Yeah. So yes, it's important. Some of you might also be interested in doing postgraduate, right? So if you already got a degree and you're working, maybe it's a good idea to get into a postgraduate degree, into a master's degree, where it will enable you to focus in a particular area of your interest, right? A master's degree in data science, for example, or in cybersecurity, or in artificial intelligence, or even in finance, right? So that may be another route that you might be thinking of. But like I said, keep learning. All right, learning is something that keeps us alive. Yeah, and that has to go on throughout our life.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Buddy, for your sharing.
Yes,
Okay, so I think this is the end for these
sure.
sessions. All
Yep,
right. So thank you again, Mr. Padit, for
sure.
joining us
Yep,
for these sessions.
yep.
And yeah, so we're
Thank
going
you.
to have a next webinar at 2 p.m., which is related to engineering. So if you're interested to know more about that webinar, stay tuned and join us on the webinar at 2 p.m. On our
Yep.
Facebook Live or YouTube. All right. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Mr. Padip. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye bye.
Okay.
Bye
Bye
everyone.
bye. Bye
Okay.
bye,
Bye.
everyone.